Your host, RJ Young. Thank you for watching wherever you are in the world here at this live show on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Got a lot we got to get through here, man. We got to talk about Texas, Georgia, obviously, in the headline. We got to talk about what Nebraska might be able to do this weekend. Travis Hunter is returning. Jimmy Horn is returning. And after a really awful Monday of injury news, we get some good news coming our way for Week 8. We're beginning the second half of what has already been an outstanding and exciting college football season. Going to end this thing with Texas, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Auburn. I mean, I could not be more thrilled about what we have in store because it does not feel, at least right now, like any one team is elite. I understand that Texas is undefeated, number one team in the country. I understand that Oregon is undefeated, number two team in the country, number one for me. And then we get to have us an argument, right? Because I don't believe that many of you believe that Penn State is one of the four best teams in all of college football. And they have an opportunity to prove that later this year when they play Ohio State. But I still think that Ohio State is one of the three best teams in college football, and that's how I have ranked them accordingly. We will talk about Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Seth Littrell a little bit later in the show. But as I am sometimes want to do, I want to start tonight's show with a thought about what Dan Lanning was able to get away with and perform on Saturday night that kind of went over my head, to be quite honest with you. I saw 12 men on the field at the end of the game. I'm going, somebody made a mistake. Somebody sent too many men out there and got the penalty. What I realized too late was that Dan Lanning was playing chess and the rest of us were playing checkers. And I have this image of Ryan Day running up to a referee on the sideline going, yo, side judge, there's 12 men on the field. That's a penalty. And he was right. It's a 5-yard penalty. But what you need to know about this is that he's doing exactly what Dan Lanning wanted him to do and what the rules allowed for. Really love this. Great reporting by Ross Dellinger over at Yahoo Sports, who has this lead that kind of underscores what's going on here. With 10 seconds left in the game, the Ducks, with 10 seconds left in the Ducks' win over Ohio State on Saturday, the Buckeyes were driving to get into range for what would have been a game-winning field goal when Oregon called a timeout. After the stoppage, the Ducks sent 12 defenders onto the field for a third down play that resulted in an incomplete pass and left Ohio State with just 6 seconds on the clock. Unlike the NFL, NCAA rules do not reset the clock to where it was before the snap when the 12-man penalty is assessed, meaning Oregon essentially traded having an extra defensive back on an obvious passing down for a 5-yard penalty that burned 4 seconds off the clock in a savvy move that is now garnering scrutiny. Really, really love that because I think a reporter thought that he was going to do something smart when he said to Dan Lanning, hey, look, the pundits, like myself, have said that since learning this, that you were somehow a genius. And Dan Lanning goes through his rigmarole before he says, yeah, so we spent a lot of time working on some really interesting once-in-a-lifetime situations, and this was a once-in-a-lifetime situation. Dog, they had that ready to go. And because they had that ready to go, you get Will Howard not knowing what time is left on the clock, sliding when he shouldn't. The game is over. Oregon wins 32-31. They play that game again. I'm not sure who wins. I do know that it was outstanding. 6 lead changes in that game. 2 300-yard passes, 1 100-yard rusher. Travion Henderson went for 87. Jeremiah Smith was awesome. Emeka Buka was awesome. Tez Johnson was awesome. Terrence Ferguson was awesome. Trayshawn Holden was stupid. But all in all, Dan Lanning out here going, nah, man, I got my big boy pants on. That dude calls fourth downs like a man who's saying, hit me with 19 on the table. You know what I'm saying? Like he just knows there's a deuce in there somewhere. I love it. I do. I think that the NCAA is going to close this loophole just as soon as they get a chance to. But my goodness, man, this is what happens when you have lots of time and lots of money and you use it wisely. Like we make fun of Oregon for having Phil Knight as the sugar daddy, right? When you got Nike supplying your football team, yeah, dog, you should not lose many football games. I mean, it's the same thing that we say about Texas. You got all the money and the resources. You ought to win every game you play. What happens when you don't? Well, you have to answer for that. But given the money and resources, you have the time and the manpower to go hunt things like this down, which I think is more the point. I think it's that there was some analyst somewhere whose job it is to look at these ridiculous game situations, not only have that thing sorted out, but know when to get into the coach's headset, go, hey, we got him. This is why people that love Connor Stallions were very excited about Connor Stallions going, hey, he just outplayed y'all. He strategized you. And I'm like, to some point, I see you, but he was cheating. He was stealing, right? In this, I got to look at what Dan Lanning is doing, and I got to say, man, as a man who has made his name disrupting in the industry, and as a man who looks at what other people are doing and then tries to find the market inefficiency and exploit it over and over again, that's just football, man. I love that. I got having this discussion with a friend of mine just yesterday, and it was, I see myself more like Gary Patterson's Texas Christian or Chris Peterson's Boise State. I'm not going to have all of the manpower and resources of others, right? That's just not going to happen. What I am going to have is a mind to go hunt and the hustle to go get it. And that is what Dan Lanning has infused into his program while having the money and the resource to go do it. That is a lethal combination. That is a nearly unbeatable combination. I love every bit of that. I do. And the more that I learned about Dan Lanning and doing this, the more I came to just love what I was hearing. This is also a man, and this means something to some of y'all, but bear with me if you don't, because I'm going to explain. Pac-12 Media Day, usually what happens is you get to see a head coach who's flanked by an SID and maybe a couple other people to basically move him from one place to another and to oversee the questions that he's going to get asked, make sure everybody's on their best behavior, and you try to keep him on time. You do that with players as well. Dan Lanning showed up to 2021 Pac-12 Media Day. And I'll never forget, he didn't have anybody with him. He had a schedule card in his shirt pocket and was looking around going, hey, it says I'm supposed to be in here at this time. Is that right? Yes. Yeah, coach. Anybody else with? Nah, it's just me. Can we do this? Yeah, coach, we could do this. Dog, I was thrilled because this is also a man that is very comfortable being himself, standing on his own 2 feet and standing behind decisions that get made by him or on his behalf. Love that. When we talk about whose coach we want to play for, I know we put out these graphics every now and again, and sometimes it just feels like you're going to be pulling for the dude that, coaches your team. Dan Lanning needs to get at the top of the list of some of these, man, because there's nothing I love more than a boss that says, go do what you know how to do, and I will take care of the rest. I mean, that's what Jimmy Johnson did at Miami. Jimmy Johnson went up to all the players that would otherwise be giving you problems and said, hey, look, y'all just win. If you win, I will take care of literally everything else. And he did. He took on Tad Friend, the president of the university. He took on media. He took on anybody that was trying to get their hands around that football team. And because he did that, those men would do anything you asked him. Like anything he asked them to do, they would go do. And I think that was the reason why those Miami teams were so good. And the reason why they won national championships. And by the time Dennis Erickson got there, he didn't have to do much. They already knew what they were doing. Hey, coach, just let us run it. And he's like, bet. Y'all just run it. Not unlike what Josh Heupel did at Central Florida after Scott Frost left there. It's like, hey, I need to learn from y'all how to win. How about I do it y'all's way and I don't get in your way? I love that. That is amazing. On top of all of this, you had a Dylan Gabriel performance that turned into one where you have to start talking about him as a Heisman finalist in earnest. He's up there with Cam Ward, with Ashton Genty, with Travis Hunter, right? As one of those guys that you're likely to see given a speech or getting interviewed by Chris Fowler at the ceremony in December, because it's just going to be like that. The man has been a giant killer of late, okay? Against top 3 opponents the last 2 years. He has averaged 313 yards passing. He has rushed for 145 yards. And he has scored 5 total TDs with 0 interceptions and a 2-0 record. He knocked off what I believe is the best team in America by roster management alone. He did that at Autzen. Also, Autzen is going to get studied, man. The way that they were able to create noise in a place that only sees 60,000 people. That's how I want to build my football stadium from here on out. That, where you can't hear anything with 60,000 people in it. Remember, there are 110 at Michigan Stadium. There are more than 100 at the Shoe. And even those places have a hard time competing with the decibel level that you're going to get from Oregon. Again, how smart are you with your money? How smart are you with building a competitive advantage at home? And that's what they got at Oregon. They've won 35 of their last 36 games. And they are one of just 2 teams to beat Ohio State in the regular season the last 3 years. And the only team not named Michigan to do it. That is how you step up, step in to what is going to be, I think, a remarkable year for the Oregon Ducks. I really do. I believe that.